I'm gonna, whoa, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Don't stop grabbing cheese if you're in the cheese line. Welcome, appreciate everybody being here. Want to do a couple things today. One, do a little campus update, just to give a sense of some of the places and time that we are as a campus. And then, of course, leave some time at the end for questions, conversation, and so forth. So, first, this is one of my favorite pictures of the campus. I wish it had a little snow in the mountains. There's another one with the snow on, but this is one that, it's not a perspective we get often enough, I don't think. For those of you who know me, you know I like the etymology of words. But something else I like is maps. I love maps. And I have a collection of maps today. And these are maps of the United States, as you can see, with universities on them. And they're, in my mind, a reminder of the national role that UCR is playing. So the first one is a map of Golden Age universities. Times in London did a kind of a ranking of universities that were created just after the Second World War, which they describe as the Golden Age of university development around the world. And in their system, we're the 4th best Golden Age university in America and 19th best Golden Age university in the world. Now, it is true that they are heavily weighted to the coasts, but remember I have lots of maps here. You'll notice there are 4 in California: Santa Cruz, Riverside, Irvine, and San Diego. And yes, I made UCR bigger than the rest. I'll own that. But there's only 4 out of 10 UCs. Okay? Let's not lose track of that. The next is Washington Monthly, which is a magazine. U.S. News and Report did theirs before Washington Monthly, so U.S. News and Report gets more press than Washington Monthly, but in some ways a better ranking system than U.S. News and Report. There they are. We're number 13 among national public universities, and this is all in. This is research. This is community engagement. This is social mobility of students. And again, count the UCs: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Half of them aren't there. Best colleges for your money. This is by Forbes magazine. You can see the company: University of Michigan, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Illinois. Not bad company to be running in. Again, 4 UCs. We're getting to a point now where you don't see everybody in the list, even from the University of California, and you don't see the same ones in the list, except... Yeah, good. My Ed McMahon up here. That's a dated joke for some of the audience. Top performing institutions for black students. The West Coast is looking a little bleak now, except for UCR. And you can see we're 9th in the country. This is by Education Trust. Most altruistic students in America. By survey of students' activities, engagement with the community, they're giving back. Again, look at the map. The entire west half of the United States, it's us, and we're number 3 in the country in terms of the nature of our students. So, these taken together, remember, universities are what the people at the universities are and what they do. These maps remind me just what special people we have here and what we are doing in a way that, look at the maps, we're the ones that's constant, nobody else is. Everybody else comes and goes. It's us. We're doing things in a way that nobody else in America is doing, and that's a tribute to all of you, all of us. It's an amazing story. Now, the rest of the story that doesn't get told often enough, I don't think, is there's a sense that we have great students at UCR and they graduate and move away. That isn't true. These are the areas in the country with the highest alumni retention rates for 4-year graduates. We are the 2nd best in America, the inland region of Southern California, at retaining college graduates. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those students have to drive somewhere else to work, but they stay here. These are altruistic, high-performing, diverse students, very successful, who stay because they want to stay. And that says nothing but good things about what you have done to make their experience here meaningful, and says nothing but good things about what our future might be. All we have to do is move some of those companies along the coast a little closer, and they won't have to drive to work anymore, which is good for everybody, including the traffic jams. So, a little bit more about those students. This is a graph. The yellow bars are percentage of our undergraduate student body who come from underrepresented groups. Native American, African American, excuse me. The blue bars are percentage of our undergraduate students who receive Pell Grants, who are nominally from families with less income. And the left side, I think, is it's 2007, so this is 10 years, 2007 to 2017. The bar that runs through the middle is the average GPA of the entering freshmen, their high school GPA, as they start their career at UCR. Now, first of all, if you look at that line, it's going up, that's great. That means, the students we have are coming in with better high school credentials essentially every year. In most of America, when that line goes up, two things happen. You recruit students who are richer and richer, and you tend to recruit students who are whiter and whiter. That's just the way, unfortunately, America is, because those students who are able to receive better support in their high schools, more advice from their counselors, and all the rest. Look at our graph. Not only does the credentials of those students go up, but we maintain, in some ways, we increase the diversity of our student body. Those are numbers that I don't think anybody else in the country can replicate. And it goes right to the heart of this kind of notion about altruism and the kinds of people that we have. No surprise, things are changing, things are growing. This is faculty count now over the last several years. As you remember, it was 870 for a long time. We're now at, 670. We're now at 867. The piece I want to point out is the upper piece here, 2016, 2017, those two squares. For a long time, we recruited about 30% of our entering faculty members as women, and about 10, 12% underrepresented minorities. Look what you've done in the last 2 years. We're now at 44%, we're almost 50% women in our entering faculty cohort. Great testament to, I'm looking at so many people in the room. And we've crossed the 20% number on underrepresented minorities in the faculty. You've heard me talk too many times about how we have a great diverse university of undergraduate students, graduate students, and staff members, but not faculty members. We're starting to turn that corner. Now, lots of people have said, okay, Kim, you're adding faculty members, what about the staff? And I said, we're coming. We're turning that corner now as well. You can see how flat this has been for years, and you go back in time and it's pretty much the same. Even during the rapid enrollment growth a while ago, we tended to stay with about the same number of staff members. We've now turned the corner. We've added about 300 in the last couple of years, and of course, we're going to continue to add people. Now, I appreciate if you're in a department where nobody got added, it doesn't feel that way to you, or heaven forbid you're in a department where people left and weren't replaced, it doesn't feel that way to you. We can have those individual conversations, but overall, the staff numbers on the campus have grown for the first time in really a very long time. How are we doing this? In part, we're doing it with private money. Again, looking at these graphs, I could have had more years, but it would have been smaller in scale. But back in time, we've traditionally raised about $20 million a year in private giving. And in this 2015 year, you're saying, what happened? It looks like you forgot the purple bar. That was a point in time when we took the time and really restructured our development offices. We added people around the country. We have regional people now on the East Coast, up and down the West Coast. We restructured the whole program, we recruited new people. We did a lot of changes in development. And we took a little bit of a hit for a year. But coming out of that year, you can see we've turned that tide as well. We're at $185 million raised toward our $300 million campaign goal, so we've turned a corner there. So what are we going to do with all this money other than hire staff and faculty? We've got to put people someplace. Who was able to attend the presentation with the architects a few weeks ago? Yeah. Great, yep. You may recognize this is by ACC Academic Campus Consultants. American Campus Consultants, which was one of the groups. This is the group we chose. I'll be honest with you, I liked one of the designs better than this one. Tells you what my job is. Who's in charge? I don't know. No, there were lots of other decision contributors, cost, history, capacity, lots of other things contributed to this, including design, of course. We've met with this group now several times and have, I hope, charged them and inspired them to take what they had and go bigger and bolder. Give us a little more pizzazz like some of those other presentations had. But this group is sound in terms of what they've done. We've had a chance to talk with the other campuses they've built buildings on, and we're good to go. Now, this says Lot 22 in North District. This is what we've called the North District where family housing is. Down in here, who knows that part of campus, Lot 22? Yep, there's a Lot 22. That space, we're actually going to start with a dining hall and a residence hall in that lot before we even cross the street to Linden and move on. As kind of the first phase. It gives us all a chance to get oriented and start kind of the process. And that will begin straight away. We hope to be some people in the space by 2020. Rather than go through all the stuff, I thought I'd put this on the wall. Excuse me. Getting over a cold. These are the projects that we have in play one way or another right now. And I guess I can go through them. A plant facility, secure plant facility that's actually off campus. The citrus community is helping us build a facility, secured facility where primarily we can address citrus greening and its threat to the industry. MRB1 is in good shape coming up beside material sciences. It's actually got some windows on it. ARB, the lab building for the Air Resources Board, the groundbreaking was a couple months ago. New plant facilities planned for along East Campus Drive up the hill. The barn, all this other stuff's fine, but everybody wants to talk about the barn. So, we're going to save. First of all, we're going to save the barn. The barn everything's good with the barn, but we have for so long lacked a place where we could take guests to lunch. Really, we had. It's a fine facility, but it's not really a sufficient facility. I think over winter break, right? We're going to close the barn over winter break. Spring break. Oh, I'm sorry, spring break. Spring break. Yeah, spring break. After winter quarter is spring break. Spring break. We're going to close the barn and then start a major renovation. And you can't see it on this map, but the two outbuildings, one to the east, one to the north, will come down. They'll be replaced with new structures. There'll be the courtyard where you can dine now will be larger, and there'll be a new courtyard on the other side, kind of behind the barn, that will be sufficiently a bit larger. In addition, one of those two new buildings will have an actual dining facility where you sit at a table and have people wait on you with a buffet kind of mix. During it'll be 18 months probably to get this all done. We're going to try to bring in some food trucks. We're going to try to open the AVC a couple of lunches a week to fill the gap. But at the end of this, we'll actually have a much nicer and more robust facility. I'm not sure where the final conversations are, but there has been conversation about a liquor license. Still in play? Where's Andy? That's been a request from a lot of people. Not that I would be interested. North District, down here we have Mobility Hub. When you drive down University Avenue now, it curves and goes north on Canyon Crest. It's going to go right into campus. The city's going to build a bus terminal there that will be a major connector for the city and for the campus, get the buses off the street, all those school buses with kids in them. Right across the highway, this is University, and that's the 215, University 215, in the spot that's been leveled now, right beside University Extension. New health pavilion, School of Medicine outpatient clinic, and University Student Health Center. And then lastly, a new Student Success Center that's planned to be classrooms, advising space, student meeting space. And hopefully we'll have most of all this done by 2020, so 4 years from now. And it will, I think, transform both the available functional space in the campus, but also the sense of how the campus is. We spent the spring in campus conversations. Some of you may recognize yourselves. And that's why you sit in the front of the room, to get in the pictures. And I want to touch just a little bit of base on that. I think there were a few take-home messages from the campus conversations. One, there's always a lot of topics. You can't have a place as big and dynamic as this, one of the leading universities in the country and the world, without having lots of things going on and things to talk about, things of concern, things to be proud of. And in that regard, the spring was very, very helpful to me. But we also, I think, learned that we are big and we are dynamic, and we have to find ways to kind of distribute information in new ways. We all have to own that responsibility. Some of us, like the Chancellor, more than others, because it's part of my job. We all have to own the communication process, though, and we all have to own the decision-making process in a much broader way than we have in the past. I want to touch just a few examples of some of the things that may look a little different now than before in the spring. So facilities were, of course, a big part of our discussion in the spring. These are a few items of note. We renovated 45 classrooms and opened 3 new restaurants since the spring. Addressed a backlog of 1,200 work orders. I haven't gotten to all of them, and again, if yours is the office that still has the door that doesn't get fixed, I know it doesn't feel that way, but we're making real progress. And we're in the process, I mentioned the Student Success Center, we're still in the final stages of securing the funding for that. Student success was an issue, or a topic of conversation rather, a priority. We opened a new transfer student center since the spring. We've opened a new teaching and learning center. We've added workshops in mental health for graduate students and international students. Those were groups that we all, I think, agreed hadn't necessarily gotten the attention that they might have needed or wanted. And there was a lot of talk about food insecurity. We've expanded our pantry, and we actually have a Calfresh Initiative with an effort really focused on helping students who qualify for food support from the state to find the mechanism to get that support. Human resources, these boldface numbers were the topics of priority from the conversation. Human resources, we've got a whole new onboarding process for employees, which was a real concern for many of us. And we've changed the background check process with an eye toward eliminating delays while at the same time maintaining the security on the employees themselves. We have seen, and this is credit to all of you, huge increase in participation in professional development. I think that's a tribute to the HR offices for making those classes more valuable and perceived as more valuable, but that's a lot of people taking the time to go and avail themselves of these opportunities. Communications, I've spent a lot of time talking with the vice chancellors and deans about their roles, what they're doing, what they can do, what they should do in terms of communication, so that I'm going to talk to as many people as I can, as often as I can, but there's more of us that can help do that. And I hope you've seen some of that impact. You probably just last week got your new Daily Digest. I will freely admit, I've been one of the most vocal critics of the Daily Digest. I couldn't figure out what the heck was in it half the time or how to find it. Kudos to the communications group for fixing that, and now everybody gets access to it in a way that it's usable. So some of these things you can see are local, some are broader. And then, I'll just go ahead and jump to the last slide since I showed it to you. The university had, for a long time, a Chancellor's Distinguished Lecture Series. And for whatever reason, it died about 10 years ago. I think it was at one of the campus conversations, somebody asked the question about where it went and why it went there. We're going to reestablish it. And the first speaker, this is a shameless plug for Friday, December 1st from 1 to 2:30 in the University Theater. The first speaker is Raj Chetty, who is a professor at Stanford. Raj is coming to bring this conversation full circle because he is, more than anyone probably in America, he's an economist, and he's talked about student success in a pretty comprehensive way. And he's put our local UCR story in the national picture. He's actually talked about us nationally and what we have achieved at UCR, not just in terms of students graduating, which is important, but in terms of changing the lives of students. The numbers of students that we have who come to us, whose families are in the lowest quartile of income and move to the top quartile by the time they're 35 years old, is among the best in the country. So it isn't just that they come and get a degree and go back to McDonald's. They come, they get a degree, and they change their life. And as a result, of course, they change their families' lives, both their parents and their siblings, but also their children's lives, in a very fundamental way. This is what Abraham Lincoln and Justin Morrill thought they were going to do in the 1860s. Much of America is struggling to do that now. UCR is doing it now, and Raj Chetty is the economist who can come and prove to us what we already knew. So please come and be proven. Now I have one other comment I want to make. I'd like Cindy to stand up, please. Cindy Lee Reeve is our new provost and executive vice chancellor. Many of you know Cindy. She was a former chair of chemistry, former vice provost, undergraduate education, the rest. I can tell you I had an anguishing summer. I believe deep in my heart that you should never appoint a provost at a major university without a search, a national search, because we deserve it. But I broke my own credo this summer because, number one, Cindy is doing such an amazing job. And number two, I thought given all that we talked about in the spring and all the challenges that we had, it was important for us to move ahead. So for those of you who were disappointed that you didn't have a chance to weigh in a search committee on a search, I apologize. That's on me. I'll own it. But I felt it was important for the campus to not lose the chance to put Cindy full bore in the job and help us move ahead. So thanks, Cindy, for doing the great job you're doing. And now we're ready for questions. Let's start with easy ones, work our way up. Compliments are fine too. Just an idea. Suggested. Okay. Oh, good. Got a mic here and there.
Thanks, Kim. Kim, may I ask where the money is coming from regarding the construction of the campus, $1 billion? Is it from private donation?
Great question. Where's all this money coming from? If I can try to go through these. The upper left is citrus industry support. They're doing it. Really, they're paying for essentially all of it. The middle one is research funding. You've seen the research growth increases. That's paying for the IMRB one. ARB, the Air Resources Board, as a arm of the state, is building that. So it's the state and ARB. The lower left, plant growth facilities, is more research dollars. As many of you know, plant sciences are traditional strength and core on the campus, and there's huge research support there. The barn we've carved out of the budget, and we're going to pay for that. It's like buying a house. We're not going to pay the whole thing at a time. We're going to pay it off as a mortgage. Excuse me. We've been planning this. I was telling someone the other day, in my first fall here in 2013, we started looking at plans for the barn. So we've been taking some time to plan for how we're going to pay for that mortgage. And much of it in part from revenue from dining. So the auxiliary operation stands on its own feet, and so that's really how it's going to be paid for. The North District is the students' room and board fees, because it's a residence hall in part. Although we're going to put classrooms in there is the intent, we're going to put some meeting spaces in there, but much of it we paid for from room and board fees. The lower left, Mobility Hub, the city of Riverside has given us a grant. It's important enough to, and we're going to supplement that, but the core of it is a city grant. They're going to actually, because it's important to them and their bus system. The outpatient pavilion is a combination of reserves that the Student Health Center has saved over time. For those of you who have been to the Student Health Center lately, it's in a terrible facility. We've known for a long time we had to replace it, so they've been trying to save some money. And then in addition, same thing, we're going to use, it'll be mortgaged over time. We're going to have a private group build it, which is actually the same with the North District. We're going to have a private group build it, so they hold the mortgage essentially, and we pay them back. We'll pay them back with some student health reserves and with clinical revenue from the doctors who work there. And last, what's in the picture? Oh, Student Success Center. If you noticed my coy wording, we're securing funding from the state. We think we have it. We haven't gotten all the paperwork signed and done. But to your point, of all that, there's very little state money in there. And I think that's part of the history. I haven't forgotten you got a question. I'm coming next. I think that's part of our history we have to wrestle with. We spent a fair period of time operating like the good old days, waiting for somebody to build things for us. And those days aren't going to happen. And so we have a long time of really no change in the physical structure on the campus. And now we got to change that. We got to be a lot more creative. So there's 2 public-private partnerships in there. There's a collaboration with the city, with the citrus industry. We're trying to be as creative as we can on finding people who share our same goals and have them help us. Now, question.
Okay. Back to the communications issue. Is there still a plan in place to put a high school in the parking lot? I mean, the thing is, the parking situation here is not good, and it's not getting any better. The traffic situation in the neighborhood is not good and not becoming any better. So what is the status on that particular item?
Thanks. We are still in negotiations with the school district, RUSD, on a STEM center on the campus. The intent still is to build it on the campus. They're looking, we're looking together at various sites. The site on, everybody knows the numbers but me, the parking 13, it is becoming a less likely spot at this time. But until the papers are signed, I don't want to make a promise, but that's a lot less likely site.
As the construction continues, I would encourage planners to include a campus safety escort service phone on the first floor of every building, which has been tradition in some of the older buildings. As the new buildings have come up, they have not included that. But for safety of faculty, staff, and students that are take labs at night or work late at night, I encourage the campus safety escort service phones to be implemented. Second of all, do students have access to the UCR Digest? Or is that just faculty and staff?
Faculty and staff.
Okay, so part of the challenge, I'm the advisor for the Campus Safety Escort Service. One of the challenges for us being able to recruit students is we don't have any way of reaching out to students. The ability to send a Scott mail out is no longer an option, and if students aren't able to read the digest, can we get some suggestions on how we can reach students to use the service and to be a part of it?
I got a guy with the answer.
Yeah, so the ability to send Scott mails to students still exists and still exists the way it existed before, which is that you have to contact the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs office, and that's the office that coordinates any email that goes out to students.
So just get an email to the Vice Chancellor and we get Scott mailed to students. Good?
Good afternoon. My question is regarding the campus growth, specifically the outpatient pavilion. Is that the same thing as UCR Health? And if so, could you talk a little bit about UCR Health Services?
Great question. Yes, it is, and yes, I can. The School of Medicine, UCR School of Medicine, is just that, a medical school that instructs students, both medical students as we think of them, people who have their bachelor's degree and are spending 4 years in medical school, as well as what we call graduate medical school students, those who are doing their residencies. They're all students in our medical school. It has faculty like any other medical school or any other school on campus. In addition, the medical school, like every other medical school, has a practice operation of some type. And ours is varied. We have physicians working in several facilities around the area already, in Riverside Community, in Desert Regional, in St. Bernardines, in private facilities, and including Citrus Tower downtown, which is our own clinic facility. And this will be another. And that practice piece is branded as UCR Health. Okay? So you have the medical school, and then you have the health operation that's actually doing the treatment. And that's important to us both because we need to be seen as a provider of health care and a part of the health community, separate from just the educational piece, number one. And number two, it puts us in the circle of the rest of the UC Healths. There's UCLA Health, UCSF Health, there's UCI Health, and UCR Health, this practice piece. So that's a great question. The dean, I see her in red, you can't miss her. We've talked a lot about how we start to brand, and in fact, she put a banner up on Martin Luther King coming into campus with just that point, so thanks. Yeah, unabashed, she's looking for patience. She's looking for revenue, because she's got to pay for that building.
I have a question about the mobility terminal coming into the center of campus because I ride the bus, and so I'm a little bit concerned about the safety of us and our students with people, like, who is that going to be open to? Is it just anybody that rides the bus coming onto campus?
Well, it's the same bus as before, except stopping at the on the street. They stop off the street.
Okay. Okay. Also about the UCR, the Citrus Health, I'm just curious what is being done to advertise the Citrus Health Services, the building that's downtown. So I feel like a lot of people don't really know about it, but.
Well, thank you so much for your question. And I would agree that a lot of people don't know about Citrus Tower. As the Chancellor said, it's the faculty practice side of the School of Medicine. We open in May of this year, and we have multi-specialty services, OBGYN, neurology, family medicine, internal medicine, pain management, and we will be bringing other services into Citrus Tower. With the UC Care that you have the option to sign up for during open enrollment, we do take UC Care. We also take HealthNet, Blue and Gold. Before, that was not an option because we weren't open, but now it is an option for you to choose a UCR faculty as your provider. Some of you may already have providers in the HealthNet, Blue and Gold. However, you could change your provider at any time, not just at open enrollment if you're in HealthNet, Blue and Gold. I can tell you that we have some of the most experienced physicians around. Our physicians are top expertise in their fields, and we have brought to the Inland Empire many of the specialists that we've not had in this area. So we are making an impact, and I can guarantee you that if you see any of the providers, you will not be disappointed.
back onto the topic of construction. I work in Costo Hall, and for the last several years, we've had an issue of an inappropriate smell coming from the restroom. It is now seeping into all of the offices in Costo Hall, and as reported by some of our students, is now in the hub. Can we shed some light on that?
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard of it. We'll follow up.
Hi, in looking at the North District and all the new student housing being built, which we obviously need, one of the pressing needs of students more and more is getting more and more notice is students who come in who are homeless and or who become homeless during the school year. And in case management, we definitely work with them. We get them connected with financial aid when that's appropriate. But I'm wondering if there's been given any thought of having temporary housing for students who are temporarily homeless in the future. I may not be part of this, but moving forward.
I haven't personally been part of such a conversation, but I'm looking to see if somebody else has. But we'll take note, yeah, because this is a big piece, and we need to plan as much as we can.
Thank you, Chancellor. I think the growth of the campus is wonderful, and being at KUCR, and a number of us here at this table are with KUCR, including our student manager, we're very concerned that we're in an existential crisis right now. There are no plans for the future of KUCR, something that's been part of this institution and is an institution itself for 51 years, and is very highly rated, nationally ranked, and is, with all of the work, the productions that we do today, this morning we did a philosophy professor, which is for NPR Los Angeles, and we did last week BBC, the week before that BBC, and we love working with strategic communications in some of these programs. But I have to say, and it pains me to say this, that we do not feel that we have been adequately represented by the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs. And he has been in the station 3 times during his entire tenure. And it is, I think, very important that when representations are made to you and to the provost, that we, the people who actually are critically involved in our department, are brought in rather than having third-hand or completely uninformed representations. It's really important that we are heard in the future planning for the university. And we have a proposal for a media center that would take the mid-century model of campus broadcasting to today. So the idea is that students participate in campus media, learn about it, and then and we have many people who have, as you know, you were at our gala, 50th anniversary gala last year, was filled with alumni who cite KUCR as critically important in their very successful careers, which go from motion picture production to many other important things. Anyway, the idea of a media center would be to take that campus radio media experience to today and then future-proof it for generations to come, to serve the campus, to serve the institution, to serve the region in a way which would bring, I think, a great deal of credit to everything involved and continue the legacy of KUCR going forward. So it's just a concern. We really want you to hear the accurate information, unfiltered. So that's our concern.
Thanks. Thanks. Take your point. I want the accurate information as well, so we'll get at it. Yeah, KUCR is a jewel. We're not gonna ruin KUCR, but we do have to find a long-term solution to the space problem. I agree. Oh, sorry.
Hi. Just a quick thought. If there's a space issue, I see 3 soccer fields on the North District. I think as students, we can use KUCR more than 3 soccer fields. So I think that's something that should be considered.
Yeah, I wasn't part of all these conversations, but there was a year and a half of planning. I could put, there's like 30 or 40 people in the planning committee meetings. That was one of the things the student reps were very serious about, was making sure there were playing fields in the space. They wanted more, actually. But we can get you connected with the planning groups, but this is something that the feedback from all the students in the planning groups was quite clear that they wanted more, not less, recreation space. So everybody's got priorities, but we'll get you connected.
You know, we're so excited about MRB1, Materials Science and Engineering. Those buildings occupy what used to be the soccer fields. And so we've cannibalized that recreation space to put to good use to some extent, but we do have to reclaim some of what we've lost.
Good point.
With regards to all the new construction, I'd just like to kind of know what the plans are for parking and structures.
Parking, I'm looking, I don't have my parking people here, and I don't have a map. We are in serious conversations with a parking structure company, and we have some likely sites. One is lot 13 behind the chemistry building. One is the lot in front of psychology, which number 6. It's amazing people know all these numbers. One is the north side of 30, right? Yes. And there's another one, depending upon what happens with the health pavilion and the third-party financing possible there. So we're seriously looking at some sites right now. Parking, I think by state law or university policy, has to be self-supporting. The only thing that we can use to build a parking garage is parking fees. Ron's not here, but there was a proposal to raise parking fees 3 years ago, I think, approved by the Faculty Senate. We were going to do it. Ron Coley, the Vice Chancellor of Business Administrative Services, said, no, let's wait a minute. And we didn't impose the increase. Instead, we cut costs on the operation, which will hopefully allow us now to use that parking increase. We're going to implement it. Do we do it this year? Yes. So we implemented this year. Thanks. There's Matt. I know. And that money, much of it, will go to starting to build some parking garages. We still have, and we've got there is a parking task force working group or something. Anybody hear from that group? Yes. Oh, there you are. Thanks. That is talking about just this. Because we were built as a campus with the presumption that we wouldn't have cars in the middle of it. And so we have a road around the outside, which means we all have to walk in. And that's a fine model in some ways, but the bigger you get, the harder it is to walk all that way. And so we have to have a new conversation about traffic flow and proximity, both for pedestrians and for cars. And that's what the task force is working on. Do you make a comment? Our task force member? No, you don't have to. All right.
I don't know how close to put it. Can you hear me? Okay. And banking off of the transportation, lot 13 and 6 are for staff. What about the students?
Lot 30. I don't know. I'm looking at my. I haven't been in the task force meeting, so. Student parking.
Just because I was a student last year, and it was, you had to get to school at 10 o'clock for a class at 1. Yeah. And then, yeah, still do. And then I'm lucky now because I work here, so I get here at like 7:30, so I can find parking. But if I had to have a dentist appointment and then come to work in the afternoon, I don't have any parking.
don't want to put you on the spot, but.
So currently, the TAPS Advisory Committee to the Vice Chancellor of Business and Administrative Services is working on different programs, and the TAPS is working on a larger scale project with looking at the usage of all the parking lots and seeing how the campus is working currently with what the utilization is currently with the parking lots, and they're working on that currently.
So I can try to find out. I don't have an answer.
I have another question about the Lot 22 North District. That's going to be built in the family area housing. Where
Yes.
are they going to go?
And what was the second part?
The current residents in that
Oh,
family district?
They have all been relocated. They're now in Oban, the apartment complex across the street. So. Yeah. Oh, here's a planner here. Mike's been on all these planning groups. So there are 2 parking structures. Oh, thank you. Duh. Yeah. Mike's pointing out that this plan has 2 parking structures in it. It was right in front of me and I forgot. With the assumption that those would be heavily student. But those, again, don't believe that this is what it's going to look like. This is just a broad concept, broad concept. But the notion is we need to put some playing fields there, we need to put some parking there, we need to have some housing, we need to have some classrooms and so forth. Yeah, thanks, Mike, for that.
Since we're talking about parking, in regards to pedestrians, so students have become more and more bold about just walking on the street, crossing where there's no crosswalk, or even crossing the crosswalk when there's a car coming. I know that pedestrians have the right of way, but when a car is actually moving, it's quite dangerous for the student and for the driver. So I'm just wondering if there's a plan to get students to, maybe to educate students about crossing the street, particularly when there's, I know it sounds silly, right, but.
The plan is look both ways before you cross the street. No, thanks for that. Thanks for that. In all these planning conversations, there's several, but I've been pretty vocal about what I think to be too many hazardous situations on our campus. Places where crosswalks are poorly placed. I think even some of our speed bumps are poorly placed. Some of them, you go over the speed bump and you speed up and you're going into a, because you slow down and go to the speed, then you speed up and you're hitting a crosswalk. We have not done well in our planning, and we haven't, I don't think, done well in thinking about each person's perspective, the pedestrian's perspective and the driver's perspective. We've just kind of done stuff. So I think there's some physical changes, and that's why many of these, I could go into great detail, have those considerations kind of baked in. The instructional piece is an interesting question that I'll have to ponder a little bit about traffic safety classes for first-year students. That'll be another conversation. Now, I realize I always run late, so I'm looking at the one last question. Oh, the president of the Staff Association. Who better to make the last question?
With all the traffic and the growth on campus, would there be more telecommuting? Do you foresee that in the future?
The question is telecommunicating. You can hear it, telecommunicating. I've been here 4.5 years. I haven't seen a lot of growth, but maybe I haven't been looking in the right places. I think that's going to be as much about the nature of the work as it is about the nature of the campus. And as we move to a different sense of HR processing through service centers, as we think of a different level of specialization, there's probably some space for that we haven't had in the past, and not quite as much time recorded face time, but that's going to be, I think, a pretty distributed kind of question that's going to be up to individual groups on the campus. But good question. Yeah, one I haven't thought enough about probably. Thanks. I realize I usually run long, so thanks, everybody.